Welcome back. Um, this episode, we're talking about cycles of time, and it's chapter 21 in the manuscript that I wrote, and it's about an article I did for the MUFON Journal entitled "It's About Time." And I hadn't found this quote when I wrote the article, but I'll read it for you now. His creation no end hath overtaken, and it hath ever existed from the beginning that hath no beginning, and the manifestations of his beauty no beginning hath beheld, and they will continue to the end that knoweth no end. And that's from this book, the Kitab Yagan. I hadn't found that when I wrote the article for MUFON. And we're talking about the beginning that hath no beginning. Now, again, I understand that some people are not religious people or don't believe in God or any of that stuff, and that's fine. But regardless of whether you believe in God, in fact, if you don't, it's not impossible to conceive. It's as impossible to think that this creation has always existed. It's at least as easy to have always existed as that it had a beginning if you don't believe in God. How did it start? By accident? Could be. But what the writings are saying is that it has always existed, which for minds like human minds, we can't conceive infinity very well. And again, as I've said before, regardless of how you feel about divinity, the writings that you just saw, the writings that include that particular volume, the Kitab Yagan, say that God is an unknowable essence. So it's unknowable. We'll never understand it. And so whatever you think got us to this pass where we are now, maybe that's how it got here. I don't know. It isn't that different, whether you call it God or whether you don't. We're all here somehow, and that somehow is what we're talking about. And in that vein, which I'll get to in the article, we are discovering through the scientific method and better technology than we had when I was a kid, that there is data staring us in the face that the older gigantic stonework is better and more perfect and impossible for us to do than the so-called later stonework, which we find piled up on top of it. And that's the point I'm dealing with here. So I'll read you the comments on this article that I wrote for MUFON. It's about time. And it's not that long ago. It's July 28th, 2024 as I read this. And here we go. In May of 2022, the MUFON Journal published my article that began this way. I must have metaphorically opened the narrow gate, traversed the straight path of crushed red roofing tiles leading to the little library on the mountainside, and I must have entered because I am suddenly back at my table, piled with manuscripts, the holy writings of an obscure Middle Eastern faith, unaware of the time passing all along the way. And it is evidence of time that I am searching for. I am seeking proof of eons and pondering a verse I had stumbled upon previously, and I've read it on here previously too. It's this one. We cannot say there was a time when man was not. At most, we can say there was a time when this earth did not exist, and that at the beginning man was not present upon it. Yes, I have mentioned this verse previously, and this is the article it created. I noted in the article that its implications raise plenty of questions beyond just the generally accepted timeline of human civilization. But to help carry that to its logical conclusion, the following verse also does some heavy lifting, and it's this one. As to thy question concerning the origin of creation, know assuredly that God's creation hath existed from eternity, and will continue to exist forever. Its beginning hath no beginning, and its end knoweth no end. His name, the Creator, presupposeth a creation, even as his title, the Lord of men, must involve the existence of a servant. This last bit, that his title, Lord of men, please note that I personally feel this is not limited to humans, involves the existence of a servant, and it doesn't say human servant. You may feel it doesn't need to, and that is okay. But even if you feel it means only humans, that doesn't solve the problem for modern science created by, quote, we cannot say there was a time when man was not, unquote. Now, does it? This implies that a pre-existent man arrived after the earth cooled. Humans may also have evolved on this planet through evolution, as we will discuss using these writings to confirm that possibility. But man also existed before that could happen, because the Lord of men has never been without his servants. But man also existed before that could happen, because the Lord of men has never been without his servants. I haven't found anything in these writings to preclude existence and evolution from occurring simultaneously. Perhaps someone else has, and I just haven't heard of it. In the article I wrote, so much for baby steps. The door to numerous complex possibilities had just been ripped off its conventional hinges, shall we say. The next verse confirms that there is much more to the story, saying, God hath raised up prophets and revealed books as numerous as the creatures of the world, and will continue to do so to everlasting. One must ask, would God need to raise up that many prophets and books if man was unable to respond to them in an intelligent way? That doesn't seem logical. Also, this verse starts the reader down the path of religious unity, in that these writings indicate that all the religions emanate from the same source. They don't just indicate it, they state it as absolute fact. But this article is focused on finding time and abundance to permit lost civilizations to grow, exist, and become lost, right? If you are interested in religious unity, the writings offer more about that in other places. This article is for forbidden archaeologists, hopefully like you. So an explanation of why a civilization might become lost in the first place is in order, and lo and behold, the writings have one. Quote, when a cycle comes to a close, a new one is inaugurated, and the previous cycle, on account of the momentous events which transpire, vanishes so entirely from memory as to leave behind no record or trace. Life on this earth is very ancient, not 1 or 200,000 or even 1 or 2 million years old. It is ancient indeed, and the records and traces of ancient times have been entirely obliterated. Each of the manifestations of God has likewise a cycle wherein his religion and his law are in full force and effect. When his cycle is ended through the advent of a new manifestation, a new cycle begins. The following verse fleshes out at least one implication here. Know thou that the absence of any reference to them, and in parentheses, that is prophets before Adam, and close parentheses, is no proof that they did not actually exist. That no records concerning them are now available should be attributed to their extreme remoteness, as well as to the vast changes which the earth has undergone since their time. Unquote. Again, all this would be irrelevant if there were no intelligent beings to hear or respond to them, right? So I added, when these trees fell in the forest, somebody must have heard them. The next verse I feel is very significant for this topic and for the larger questions of who are we and who should we be? Quote, witness to it is the holy tradition. Before all else, God created the mind. From the dawn of creation, it was made to be revealed in the temple of man. Of the many lame excuses we use for our collective bad behavior for any given day or historical epoch, a lack of time to prepare ourselves should not be among them. Whenever the message was heard, as it must have been, then it resounded in the mind of man. So-called modern humans, as we define ourselves via brow ridges and brain case volume, may not have been in evidence, perhaps. Now, I don't remember what's in the rest of this, and I'm going to read it to you in a second, but there's what you're seeing happening here is I'm beginning to flesh out my own ideas that man is part of the kingdom of mankind that has always existed, and how we classify our current existence as Homo sapiens is only a part of that. And that's how we look on this planet. But as the writings will tell you later, other beings, intelligent beings, aware of their creator or aware of themselves, however you wish to say it, look like how their elements of their planet allow them to evolve. And so this is all formulating in my mind here as I wrote this article about 3 years ago. And that's the distinction I begin to make, is that when they say it was made to be revealed in the temple of man, that is a much broader term than humans for me personally. I don't know what those who are really understanding of the writings of the faith, what they think, and they may disagree with me, and they're free to. And as I've said elsewhere, they have no problem with me giving you my views on this subject over YouTube. So that's one thing that's going on. And that's why, as I sit here with things going on around the farm that are related to very large, intelligent, bipedal beings, they are part of the kingdom of man too. And that is why they respond to mention of the Creator, because they have a relationship with their Creator just as we do, because it's the same Creator. And for anyone who's had problems with or incidents that scared them with the Sabe people, that's why I've read earlier that God has never created an evil spirit. And so I find in all of this that there is a lot of reassurance in the way that these writings approach strange phenomena. Okay, let's go on. Not for the last time in an article or in this book, I reassured my readers that I don't care what they or you believe, whether something or nothing. I wrote, as I am searching the writings of a mystical faith for authoritative statements about time, references to God, manifestations, etc., are unavoidable. So just ignore them if they don't suit you. Focus on the timeline they create. In the above, references to prophets, etc., make it clear we are talking about civilizations, minds with some kind of organized religion rather than one-celled organisms or dinosaurs. Please be assured, I think the writings are true for me. They confirm what I am experiencing with the paranormal, strange, and beings that are not even supposed to exist. They offer a heretofore undiscovered explanation that seems to put the data into a useful, logical context, at least for me. You may disagree. Still, the writings belong to you anyway, so you are free to use them for whatever support they may add to your position on these phenomena, or any other position that you find in them. I expressed my opinion in the article as follows. Back to the MUFON article. The vast expanse of time explains why older megalithic stonework can surpass historic Spanish or Roman work, for example, and why those annoying, out-of-place artifacts just keep turning up, like mountains that might really be pyramids, or finding ancient figures of little clay men riding little clay triceratops. If man has had a mind and religions since time forgotten, then we might find anything anywhere if we dig deep enough, and lost civilizations are back on the menu, boys. Look what they are finding in the Americas, especially the Amazon basin, now that some researchers have determined to keep digging even after they reach the Clovis layer. As the divine entity, this is a quote, as the divine entity is eternal and divine attributes are coexistent, co-eternal. The divine bestowals are therefore without beginning, without end. God is infinite, the works of God are infinite, the bestowals of God are infinite. Thinking of science as we know it, I concluded that, quote, I should probably have somebody else start my car, because so far what I have found says that every timeline of modern science and every equation placing a limit to the age of the universe, of humanity, and of civilization, or the number of dimensions, is wrong. My next Christmas present from modern science will definitely be a lump of coal, which I will dissect looking for figurines. Now, I was confirmed as a member of the Congregational Church of Payson, Illinois, in the early 1960s. I recall hearing World Without End, Amen, and similar references to the infinite aplenty. What I don't recall is much discussion of the implications of an infinite supreme being having an infinite creation. The world, namely the earth, had a beginning. So back then, God did not have a servant before that. But then we did not know of the verse indicating that man predated earth or that God had raised up so many prophets. This perspective changes the dynamics surrounding many iconic events. Adam and Eve evolved from clay and rib with the earth as an existing stage. They are described as the first humans. If one adds the words on this planet, that's the story for me is placed in a more understandable framework. I am not a Bible scholar, and I don't care to be. Creation stories abound, and now that we know there were many prophets, I see that the writings support the creation story of my Dogon and Hopi 22nd cousins whose ancestors arrived from the stars. No problemo. Also, the flood and the cataclysms of the Younger Dryas and similar events may be only the most recent flood. The Aztecs described 4 previous civilizations or worlds ending in a variety of catastrophes. Do we really think they were just making up stories for their own amusement? Where is your evidence for that? In the article for my USO, unknown submersible objects, friends, I added sincerely, quote, just as an aside, with destruction ending cycle after cycle, a thinking man, in quotes, with plenty of advanced technology, might decide that really deep underwater is a good place to weather the storms. Just saying. Given the above quotations and quotations from my other articles, including those who play the percentages whose number no man can compute, ancient civilizations are very probably out there. E.T. may well be our own ancient family, sculpted by their various environments over the eons. In a fit of more foreshadowing, I concluded this, quote, man thing, unquote, deserves further investigation. In these difficult times, I fear I must leave you with more questions than answers, but also this. God's greatest gift to man is that of intellect or understanding. The diversity in the human family should be the cause of love and harmony, as it is in music, with many different notes, where many different notes blend together in the making of a perfect chord. If you meet those of different race, think of them as different colored roses growing in the beautiful garden of humanity, and rejoice to be among them. This could be relevant, even vital, if E.T. turns out to be us. That is where the article ended. MUFON requests that submitted manuscripts be kept to about 1,500 words. I would like to add here that, quote, if you meet those of a different race, the writings don't say all bets are off if they happen to be of some other part of God's creation, do they? In fact, the last quote, without saying whether they are or aren't, says to think of them as part of the garden of humanity. Oh, and one more thing from the manuscript. A late entry. If, like me, you are a human who yearns for true peace on earth, you have probably been met with the remark to the effect that you'll never change human nature, meaning that, in the speaker's fallible opinion, peace is not attainable. But consider, if the quotations regarding cycles are correct, then peace has been attained countless times, as humanity has achieved spiritual maturity in each consecutive cycle. In fact, we have never failed to achieve peace. Never, ever. You can think what you like, but I find that comforting. And that ends chapter 21 of the manuscript. And I think I can leave that there. I think most people understand that when it's talking about man, it's not talking about male, female, it's talking about the species. And we have the limitations of language in this plane of existence, and that's how we do it currently. We may do it differently later, who knows. And what's one other thought may have zoomed out of my mind. If I think of it, I will add it in a later time. So I guess I'll leave it there for today. Thanks for checking in. Glad you're here. Please come back. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Yeah, give it a go.